Welcome, all three of you. Welcome by live stream. We're streaming live right now. And for those of you who are watching by telecast, you'll catch this a week later. And these live streams are later podcasts, and if there's a message that goes off the air before you're finished watching, you're welcome to join us on Facebook, Bucyrus Nazarene Church, our website, and you can watch all of the message. Happy Father's Day to all three again. Fathers are to be the dominant figure in the family. They're to lead their family. Yet 1 out of 5 wives or women have a husband with them when they attend church on Sundays. That's only 35% of the men attend church with their families on any given Sunday morning in America. That's a huge disconnect between men and the church. Did you know that in most religions, the men far outnumber the women? Men far outnumber the women in the Hindu religion. Men far outnumber the women in the Buddhist religion. And men far outnumber the women when it comes to the Islamic faith. Only in the Christian faith do the women outnumber the men. What in the world's going on? Jesus' ministry was like a magnet to men. Fact of the matter, and this is not to demean women, but if you read the Bible in the times of Christ, women were not even mentioned in the crowds in Christ's time, nor even the children. That's why when you have that miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, it said the number was 5,000 men were fed. And then as a subnote it said, and children and women besides. 3,000 men were filled with the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. Jesus looked for 12 men to take over the world. And they were not religious men. Fact of the matter, they were regular men, real men, men that sweated. And some of them in the early days before Pentecost had a little cussing problem. They were men that would get in each other's face. Paul said, I withstood Peter right to his face. In other words, it got in his grill. Wouldn't it be something on a Sunday morning you walk in and somebody's right in the face of the pastor and saying, let's take it outside? Men. Can I just say this morning, we need you, men. Your wives need you. Your children need you. Your family needs you. The church needs you. And it's important that you follow Christ closely because boys follow men. Now, all of us men are different. You're reading sometime in Genesis over there in chapter 25 through chapters 27. You'll read about two twins by the name of Jacob and Esau, and they were so different. One was a daddy's boy. One was a mama's boy. The Bible said that one of them was hairy, but the other was smooth skin. One was a hunter, and the other, he was a chef. One, you'd see his picture in fields and streams, but the other, his picture would be in GQ magazine. They were totally different, but the church needs all men. Men need to come together when it comes to church. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13 says, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men. Be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. Now, what does it mean to act like men? God says we're to act like men. Every day you need to step up and do what a man needs to do. Act like men. Now, if you want a negative on that, you want to turn it around. In other words, it means don't act like a woman. And that's not a bad thing, but it means you're not to follow, you're to lead. Men are to lead. That's what it's talking about here. God gave to the man the role and the responsibility and the accountability to lead. It's your house. It's your marriage. It's your family. About everything rides on your shoulders. It's more up to you than anybody else. Peter wrote in the 3rd chapter, verse 7, he said, husbands, likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel. He's saying that you are not to be the weaker vessel. When it comes to prayer life, you are not to be the weaker one. It has to be drug in, and you're pouting, you got your lip out, and you're not even leading in prayer. When it comes to God's house, and you're showing up about once a month, hey, you got it backwards. You're to lead to the house of God. You're to be the leader spiritually of your wife and your children and your family. You're to take the responsibility to act like a man. What does it mean to act like a man? Well, we always say the women are the drama queens. Some of you men need to lose your drama too. A little conflict in the home and everybody's walking around on pins and needles and afraid to say anything. Dad's upset. Don't say anything. There's liable to be an explosion. You know what? Just get full of the Holy Spirit and He'll help us with these things. I don't care how successful we guys are and how much we bring home on payday, none of us have the right to ever be unkind. Even to the children, let alone our spouse. To act like a man is not to act like an animal. Do you know 275 times the word beast is listed in the Bible? And over in the psalmist David's writing Psalm 73 verse 22, after he had committed adultery, he said, I was as a beast before God. Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel chapter 4, it reads in that 33rd verse how he allowed his life to become so open that he became so evil with evil spirits that he became like an animal and crawled around for some years and grazed with the animals out in the field. We're not to be an animal. Animals, everything is about themselves, my desire and my food and my chair and my house and my highway, or it's my way, or you hit the highway, and it's my remote, and it's about me. Hey, men need to act like men. Men need manners. You open the car door. When you see a guy open a car door, it must be because he's either got a new wife or a new car. Get some manners. Don't act like a woman. Don't act like an animal. Hey, when you act like a man, don't act like a boy. Time to grow up. Time to put on manhood. Time to put on the big boy britches. You're not a boy anymore. I want my mama. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Your wife is not your mama. When boys, they have to be cared for. Men, they care for others. And Paul wrote in that letter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, when I was a child, I acted like a child. I understood like a child. I thought like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. There's the when of childhood, when I was a child. That's when you played with G.I. Joes and you had little toys and you girls had Barbie dolls. When I was a child. And then there's a second when, the when of manhood, when I became a man. Some of us need a second when, don't we? Bigger boys with bigger toys. Did you know you're only young one time in life, but you can be immature for your whole life? And so he's saying, God's saying to all of us guys, act like a man. Let's get off of that for a moment. That's not going over well. I've done lost my live stream crowd. When you think that 1/3 of the children in America are born illegitimately, do you realize that 1/2 of the children will be raised without a father in the home? 25 million children will not have a dad on Father's Day in the house. 25 million children that will not have a father that will engage in their lives. Children need strong male fatherly influences in their lives. And also it's sad when a father's not a right role model leading their children in right directions. The Apostle Paul said we have many leaders, many teachers, he called it, and not many fathers. You can have a number of people that'll teach you in life, but no one else can take the place of your father. And there are certain characteristics that ought to be the makeup of every man that's going to be a father. Incidentally, are you aware of the fact that when men come to Christ, 93% of the family will follow? Now, there are some things that children need in a father. I would suggest, number one, he needs to be a protector. Fathers are protective. He's concerned about their well-being. There should be an inclination somewhere in him to see that you're safe, protecting you from your enemies and protecting you from fraud and protecting you from dangers and protecting you in life. Protect you from trouble. They try to protect you from a lot of stress in the home. And sometimes in dealing with issues, he may say nothing because nothing is better than telling you about all the problems. He's protecting you. When the Bible talks about the man being the head, he's talking about him being a covering. And some of the things he's protecting is from, you may never see him. You may not even know about him. He's protecting you. He's taking the lead. And when trouble comes, the trouble hits him first. And you don't get hit by all of the trouble. When the wind comes, he's standing in front of the gale, and the gale doesn't hit you with all of its force. He's a protector. That's the problem with being a father, because most people will never realize the worth of a dad until he's gone. It's then the gales of life hit you, and then you realize all the stuff that he was dealing with. We don't always appreciate them because they're out there in front blocking the wind. And a good man is recognized for the fullness of his worth after his departure. Because everything that will hit you now, you begin to understand he used to take the hits. And a good man's recognized for the fullness. I thought about Elisha and Elijah. How Elisha followed Elijah around, and the only thing he ever did was just poured water on the old guy's hands. But that day when Elijah went home to heaven in a chariot of fire and disappeared, Elisha looked around and his father figure was gone, and that leadership personality in his life was not there. And suddenly he's on his own. He looks around and there's a swollen, muddy Jordan. There's a Bible college up yonder, and they're watching to see what he's going to do. And he thought, do I have it or don't I? And he looked around for the old man's mantle, and he said, where's the Lord God of Elijah? I've got to face life now on my own. It's up to me. Dad's gone. Mom's gone. And I'm up in years and it's me now. Fathers are protectors. Anytime a father comes home whining, complaining all the time, he's not a good dad, because he leads by silence. He doesn't make big deals with it. He deals with life. If you're going to raise a young man to be a father, you've got to expose him once in a while to some trouble. You don't pick him up every time. You tell him to quit crying and get up and learn how to be a leader, because you're trying to develop a young father. But a father's not only a protector, may I say a father is a provider. He furnishes provisions. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. He's a provider. That's more than money. He provides wisdom. He provides friendship. He provides camaraderie. He provides counseling. He provides understanding. He provides insight and perspective. He's got a giving spirit. He adds to you. Your life is richer and fuller because he is in it. He's a provider. He's a contributor. He's a giver. And if he's stingy, you better quit dating him, because he's going to be rough to raise kids with him. Cut him loose. Do you know if a guy is stingy at 20, he'll be stingy at 80? Just thought I'd mention that in passing. And incidentally, he's a provider, but it doesn't mean he can give you everything he wants. Some of you sisters want more than Manhattan Chase Bank and spend it before he even brings it home. Think about it for a moment. Don't break him. It should be in the DNA of a father to be a provider. Did you know that God created man and created man in his own image? One of the names for God is Jehovah Jireh. God will provide. And God builds a man with the innate desire to want to provide and to give to his own and to take care of them. Fact of the matter, just the physical build of a man is a hint to the fact that he's a giver and not a receiver. We need to teach our young men coming along, our boys, to be providers. Sometimes we get a generation say, well, I'm in love, I think I'll get married. Good idea, but do you have a job yet? Where you all going to live? Oh, I guess live in the basement. Not at our house. Just don't work very good. Hello? Well, I'm just kind of a stud. No, you're just a spud. That's a potato couch. Or a couch potato. I'm quite a dude. No, you're a dud. If you're going to feed Fifi or whatever her name's going to be, you need to get a job and get some work and bring in an income and move on in life and provide. Good preaching, you deserve the best. Moving on. A good father is not only a protector and a provider, but he is also a promoter, somebody that'll promote somebody besides himself. Not always think that the family's about making you look good. It's taking the gift that God has given to you and making them look good. God the Father spoke to God about God the Son, and he said, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. It's good when we are proud of our kids and we build them up and we can point them out that they're turning out like we intended they turn out. There needs to come a time in your life when you realize it's not about you, but it's about your children. And the enemy's not fighting you for you. If you're about 30 or 40 years of age and you're dysfunctional, you're probably crazy because you've been crazy by now too long. Something may have happened in your own youth when you were a kid. You got to understand one thing. The devil will do everything he can to make you do something, mess up your family, so he can just keep that generational curse going on and on and on down through the family tree. break the curse. And you need to say, just because Daddy left, I'm not going to leave. And just because Daddy ran off with some woman don't mean I have to. And because Dad was a drunk doesn't mean I have to be a drunk. I'm going to break the curse. I'm going to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Man is to be the priest of the home. The first thing that Noah did when the ark landed, it wasn't to go build a house, but he built an altar first. Why? Because that's what priests do. And when God sets you up as a father in a home, you're the priest of that home. You're the spiritual leader. Nothing should get past you that could destroy that home. You need to have a prayer life. That's putting a covering over your children, over your marriage, and over your family, and it brings blessings and benefits and favor of God on your house. A man should be a praying man. Don't just come to church. Got to have a prayer life. Got to learn how to turn stuff over to God. You can't handle everything. Did you know that? I mean, if everything comes at you and you don't have God to turn to, you're going to crack. You're going to cave in. You're going to break. You're going to crumble. Trouble comes. Turn your trouble over to God. You're the priest of the house. When mama brings trouble and the kids share their trouble and the wife brings her trouble and then you got somebody down on the job, they're sharing their. If you don't turn it over to God and say, God, you're able, you're not going to make it. We're the prayer leaders. We're the priest of our home. Somebody said that men ought to raise holy hands without wrath and without doubting. I'd like to say men ought to pray without ceasing. Why do you say men ought to pray without ceasing? Because troubles come without ceasing. Problems roll in without ceasing. Situations roll in without ceasing. And they keep coming and they keep coming. And if you don't know how to pray and you don't know how to turn to God, you're going to cave in. And that's why some go back to drinking and back to smoking and back to chasing, because they couldn't handle the problems of life, because they didn't have that priestly relationship with God Almighty. Sin will separate. But I want to tell you something this morning as a pastor, these many years. There's something a whole lot worse than sin, and that's a lack of a prayer life. Because God said, if you'll pray, if my people which are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and I'll heal their land. Your sin problem isn't God's problem. Your problem is you need to pray. God said, I'll forgive your sins. I'll heal your land. If you'll just pray, I'll take care of your weaknesses. We've got to fight the devil. We need men that'll fight the devil. Because if you're a praying man, God made you the priest over your house. May I just say to the men, you need to show up. You need to show up at home and show up on the job and show up at church and show up when there's situations that need a dad. Because we're the priest over the home. And some of us better get on our priestly garb, because the devil's already stolen some of our own children. And it's time we step up and begin to defend the home as the priest. And may I also say, a good father's a prophet. He prophesies to his children. He tells them what they can be and what they could become and where they need to go. And he speaks to their destiny, not to their predicament, but to their destiny. You're better than this, and God's got a better plan, and you're shooting too low, and shoot a little higher, and get up. And don't give up. You got to prophesy to them. I was reading this week about how the Bible talks about Rachel. She was pregnant with a child, and she got right into the throes of labor. She's gasping and she's dying and trying to give birth, and evidently there's not a doctor, there's a nursemaid there, and they're trying to get this child born, and in the heat of it all, she made a statement. May I just say this and say it very cautiously and very carefully? Be careful what you say in front of your kids. And watch scarring your children with your pain, whatever happened in your life. Don't just bring it up and pass it on to your family. In the very heart of giving birth, she dies. And the last thing she says, name him Benoni, meaning child of my sorrow. Now, can you imagine going through life and your mama make a statement like that about you? You're a pain. And the old man, Jacob, shuffles across the tent, and the nurse, she lays that little baby in his arms and said she died. And she named him Benoni. And Jacob said, don't you call him Benoni, the son of my sorrow. Call him Benjamin, son of my strength and son of my right arm. And he prophesied over him, not as a failure. And now, here's a boy whose mother died birthing him. He had every right to be dysfunctional. That's what his mom thought of him. But through him came the future kings, one after another. They're marching down through history from out of his loins. Why? Because his father prophesied to him who he was and who he would become. Jacob, the father of great kings. May I just stop for a moment and say, dads, be prayerful. Be prayerful. Be the one that prays over the family. I try to tell the wife, hey, let's kneel by the bed, shut everything off. We don't need a radio on or TV on, transistors or other sisters. Shut everything off. It's time for prayer. You better have that time in your house. If there's only 2 of you, if there's 5 of you, time that you take time to get in the presence of God. And you have to lead the way. If you don't, it won't happen. As a rule, be prayerful. And when you do, you're putting a covering. It's like putting a roof over a house. Now, can you imagine a house for the last few weeks without a roof? We needed an ark when I got up this morning. Fields are full of water. Can you imagine all the storms getting into a house without a roof on it, all the nice furniture, all the investments and the photos and the pictures and the furniture and the family, and you let everything come into that house? You're putting a roof over that house. You're putting a covering over that house. Genesis 27, first 29 verses. 3 secrets into which and how you can bless your family and your children. Old Isaac sitting there, and his son walks in and he said, Daddy, bless me. Do you know your kids would rather you bless them than curse them? And we can do some Nazarene or Baptist or Methodist cussing too. May not be dirty words, but it's cutting down and putting down. And kids need blessed. Dad, would you bless me? And guess what he did? He said, come over here, son. And the Bible said he touched him. The first blessing you can put on your kids is a meaningful touch. Touch them. I'm talking about an appropriate hug. Dad. Well, my daddy, he wasn't very touchy-feely. Well, break the habit. Don't be a dipstick. Love your kids. Let them know that you're affectionate and you care about them, and you reach out and not only that, he spoke verbal blessings into his life. If you want to build self-esteem and strong, confident kids, embrace them, but also give a word of blessing. In other words, attach high value. Speak future-oriented words into their life. Talk about their talents and your belief in them and how amazing they are. What are you doing? You're speaking the future blessing into their life. And not only be prayerful, hey, be positive. James Dobson said, for every time you criticize your spouse or your kids, it'll take 7 positives to rebuild what you just tore down when you attacked them with your words. Kids want approval. They want affirmation of their father. And then let me just touch on another one. You'll like this one. Dads, be pliable. Sometimes we get so stiff and rigid and hard-nosed and stern and opinionated. You can overdo it. You don't have to shout me down right now. I got some notes. If I get in the brush, I'll go back to my notes. I'm going to make it here. I won't get lost. If I get lost on a rabbit trail, it's where some folk are. When your kids turn about 12 and 13, boy, they start acting crazy, don't they? If you could just take a picture of it and put it on TV, I think you could make money. Don't touch me. I don't agree. Well, my friends, that's not, hey, nobody asked about your friends. But there's a good thing about when they get about 12 or 13 and they start acting like that. What it is, they're wanting their independence. They're not ready for it yet, but they're beginning to want that independence, and it's just leading toward, I don't know whether it's something from God that begins to get them discontent, that they're not wanting to live here with mom and dad. They don't want to be a copy of you. They don't want to be there the rest of their life. It's something that kind of drives them out to get married and to leave their father and their mother and to cleave to their companion. It can be a good thing, not always a bad thing. Just be careful during those times. It's during those times they feel so brilliant and they think you're so stupid. I love going to district assembly in that it's so much fun watching these young bucks. They think the old-time preachers are just fogies and clear out of the past. And not a one of them has built a church yet, but they think they know more about it and what's going on. These kind of like kids. But I found out one thing, if you get too hard on them, you'll drive them away. And if you can't be pliable and you get too rigid, you're going to lose them. Because there's something out yonder that'll pull for them and make them cheap offers, and you got to be careful. We set the spiritual boundaries, but we need to give them a little attitude. Well, they want to look different. Yeah, they are different. They're younger. Well, I don't like their hairstyle. They don't like yours. Some of you don't even have any. Well, I don't like the hair color. Hey, they watched you go through about 4 or 5. What color would it be if you left it alone? Well, they got a little of this Justin Bieber about them and the way they wear their jeans. Hey, don't worry about it. Don't make a big deal over everything, is what I'm trying to say. I've raised a couple. I can't tell you I did everything right, but I did try to show up at some of their games. Be there for them. Support them. If you're going to fight over every hill, you're going to lose some battles. You're not going to have any pocket change. And someday on a rainy day when there's a big issue, you're not going to have any pocket change with them. And I'm simply saying, give all you can give. Just remember, allow them some latitude, but just have the spiritual boundaries. Go to their games. Go to what they're doing. Before Roger moved off, he said, Dad, there's something I want you to go with me to. And he was in college, and boy, my schedule was heavy, but I said, okay. By that time, Jan was in a nursing home. It was just me up at the house. And so I piled into the car, and we went down to Columbus, and they had this crazy thing called hockey. You ever heard of hockey? I'm in there, and those guys are flying right by me. Whew. Felt like when I'm walking in my mind. And then they were slamming each other up. The first time I saw a guy slammed against the glass wall, I thought the glass would give. That guy's eyes walled back in his head, and he said, good night, Jesus, or he said something. He was out. I looked over at Roger. He looked at me. He saw the shock on my face, and he went bananas, and I dropped my popcorn, and we laughed and ha-ha'd, and what an evening together. And you know, that's all they want is just a little bit of time. Not a lecture. They want to learn from you, but they don't want another lecture. Just, Dad, spend a little time. And they may never make the first string, and they may be sitting on the bench, but they'll look back over their shoulder to see if you're up in the stands. But whatever you do, you be sure they're in church. Did anybody hear me? You be sure they're in church. Because I want to tell you something. All the sports and all that stuff won't matter a whole lot when they're 40 years of age. It'll have nothing to do except the bad knees. Out then, they're working jobs and nothing about school, and they wonder why they put so much. And I want to tell you something. Often through the eternities, if they're not in heaven, you wished you'd have got them in the youth group.
You'd have wished you'd have sent him off to the youth camp. You wished you'd have kept him in church. Be pliable. Non-essential issues are not what you need to major on. And then may I also add, be playful. When David took the ark back to the temple, the Bible said that after that, he returned back to his home and he blessed his house. What would happen if every dad left this service and went home to bless their children and their companion and got on the phones today and blessed their grandkids with a phone call? Joshua, at the age of 110, said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Now, I can't help what's going on in school systems across America. And I don't care about the party going on up the block. As for us at our house, we are going to serve the Lord. And I didn't deal with that third active blessing, and it's called active commitment. Not enough just to say to your kids, good luck, you're on your own. No, find out what they're gifted at and support them. If they got any music, buy them a piano, guitar, or not a drum set, of course, and a horn or something, and get them a music teacher or a voice teacher. If they like mechanics, buy them some tools, but support them in those years. I go back to those three things that are a blessing. One of them was a meaningful touch. You know what's wrong with the men of our society? They've never had a man lay their hands on them and pronounce a blessing. If you go to district camp this year, there's going to be an unusual thing take place. There'll be an older gentleman with a younger gentleman. And the younger gentleman was born blind. He has a lot of handicaps, and his parents didn't want anything to do with him. I think gave him away, and a gentleman walked into a restaurant like a McDonald's and saw this kid sitting over there alone and all by himself, and made his way over and tried to communicate with the kid. And every time he'd see him, he'd begin to pour a little bit of his life in him and put his hand on him and begin to bless him with the time and attention. And come to find out, he's one of only 20 people in the world alive that has a memory that can never forget anything or anybody he's ever met and can repeat it all. But somebody took time to walk over and take time out of their life to touch his life with their life. And I think it's time that we break the curse, even in this church, of men not reaching out and blessing their homes by laying hands on their children. It might be good for some of us today to do that and put a blessing on them and reject the curse of the enemy so the enemy leaves. Let's give them a good future. 1924, the Olympics. A man by the name of Bill Havens. He was going for the gold medal in rowing a canoe against the rapids. They said there was no competition anywhere in the world that could deal with Bill Havens, and he was going for the goal. And just as he was about to depart, his wife went into labor to give birth to their firstborn child. He told her, he said, "I'm going to stay home." She said, "Oh, no, you won't. You're going, and this has been your lifelong dream, and this is what you've worked for and you've striven for, and you need to go for that medal." He surprised the committee and he surprised his wife. He wrote him a note and said, "I'm not going to the Olympics. My boy's birth is more important. And I'm not going to not be there when my boy is born." August the 1st, 1924, that son was born. They named him Frank. No doubt there were times that Bill wondered how he would have done if he had competed in the Olympics. No doubt he wondered perhaps what it would have felt like to have that gold medal hung around his neck. But he said he never was disappointed, never regretted his decision to be there for the birth of his son. Bill loved that boy and poured himself into that boy, Frank, and taught him everything he knew and built him up. And 24 years later, Frank signed up for the Olympics at Helsinki. I believe that's Finland, isn't it? And he qualified, and he went to Helsinki and competed. And when the Olympic thing was over, a telegraph came home to Bill, and it read, "Dear Dad, thanks for waiting around for me to be born in 1924, 24 years before. I'm coming home with a gold medal that you should have won. Your loving son, Frank." Here was a dad that had a chance for the big gold in life, but his biggest achievement was to be there for that boy. He didn't want to fail that boy, and he poured everything he had into that boy and said, "You can go further than me, and you can do more than I'll ever do in life." And I'm simply saying in closing this morning, don't neglect your family. Don't neglect your marriage. Don't neglect your home. But be like Joshua. "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." I want every dad in the house to stand with me just for a moment. I'm so glad that you're here. Wouldn't be much of a church without you, gentlemen. And before we go, I'd just like to have a word of prayer with you. Would that be okay? Could the dads just come up front, just kind of stand across the front? Just join us up here across the front. You'll see a lot of our leadership team. Thank God for these dads, fathers. You can make it down the aisle. Come on, guys. I know it'll take a lifetime for you to get here, but bring it on. This is a beautiful Father's Day. Some of you are grandpas. Not even old enough to be grandpas. I don't know how you know how to be a grandpa. You just hand it back and say good luck. No. But I want to pray. I want to ask God's blessings. I think this is a gift that we have right here at the front. I'm honored just to be a pastor of men like you, men that are leading your homes. You say, "Well, Pastor, I'm not sure I've done well." Well, just do like I've had to do through the years. Tried to hitch up my big boy britches, tighten my belt. Didn't know everything I needed to know, but I tried to give it the best I knew and tried to find out what I needed to know by asking some others. Father, I come to you at the close of this first service. And I look across at all of these men that are standing here. If we were to look at their hands, we'd see scars and calluses, hands that have worked hard, some doing extra things to make enough to put food on the table, to send their kids off to school with books and with clothes they wouldn't be embarrassed to wear. We thank you for the sacrifice of these gentlemen. They're here on Sunday. And Lord, would you take us to a new level as fathers? Help us to know how to embrace our children, how to speak verbally words of encouragement, and to actively be committed into their lives, sometimes to be playful, always to be pliable. Help us to be positive. Most of all, I pray, oh God, help us to be prayerful. Help us to be the priest of the home. And I ask for a special blessing on this Father's Day gathering of men and the women they're married to and their children. While we're honoring them today, Lord, would you honor them too and bless their lives this morning? I pray in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Yes.
I was thinking as Pastor was preaching, I wanted to share this with you. Patty doesn't remember this. I was a minister, music, or song evangelist probably 20 years. My kids were almost out of high school. I was a minister of music, working church ministry. And God began to speak to me about the fact that I was not a husband that prayed with my wife and my kids on a daily basis. I prayed for them, but I never prayed with them. And I'd say I'm going to do it, but I couldn't do it. And I just want to say to some of you, I don't know how, some of you young guys, some of you younger guys, Patty doesn't remember this, but one of the hardest things I ever had to do was go to my wife and say, Patty, I'm sorry that I've not been a prayer person with you. I couldn't just start doing it. I felt so awkward. I had to prepare for a change in my life by apologizing to my wife. And from that time on, it was never difficult to pray every day with my wife. But it was a dramatic change in my habits. But it had to come as I apologized to her for not doing it. That may not work for you, but as Pastor was preaching so eloquently, I just felt like perhaps that'll help somebody. God bless you, Pastor.
Good looking bunch, aren't they? Hello back there. Okay. God bless you. Shake hands, visit. And there's no Sunday school tonight. And we've got a photographer waiting for you. And line your family up and get some pictures. If you're by yourself, get your picture taken. God bless you. Love you guys. Love you all. You're dismissed.